Hey, welcome to my channel. My name's Carter. I love talking about movies, horror movies, comic books, and superheroes. And tonight, I just got out of seeing the new remake of Speak No Evil. For the record, I have never seen the original, I believe, Danish film. It came out a couple of years back. It's been on my list, but I've just been really busy the last couple of weeks with school, so I haven't been watching much of anything. And so I had to go into this one pretty much blind. I know the basic plot of the original, but I heard this one would be different. I assumed it would be different, especially because of the original's ending. I feel like they really wouldn't keep that in a American version. Before I get into my video, what did you guys think about Speak No Evil? Do you prefer the original or this new one? What did you think about both of them? Let me know down in the comments below, and should I watch the original? Again, please let me know. Speak No Evil is written and directed by James Watkins, at least the American version is. Stars James McAvoy, Mackenzie Davis, and Scoot McNairy. It has cinematography by Tim Maurice Jones. And getting right into the positives, I really enjoyed, obviously James McAvoy. His performance in this film pretty much makes it or breaks it. The script of itself can be very frustrating at times, at least on the character end of things, and that is on purpose, but James McAvoy really just elevates this from like an average film to like a decent movie. I actually enjoyed myself way more than I expected to, and much of that is attributed to James McAvoy's just unhinged performance. If you've seen Split or Glass, then you really know what McAvoy is capable of, and he just absolutely goes all in on this performance, and I enjoyed every single second that he was on screen. It felt like he could just really flip or turn at any time completely on a dime. He was so unpredictable, you never knew what he was gonna do or say or kind of like twitch next. He twitches a lot in this movie, and it's so incredible to watch. And I also really enjoyed Mackenzie Davis as well. She plays a very frustrated yet flawed wife pretty perfectly, and when it goes into the third act and things ramp up incredibly well, she is all out, and I really loved her performance here. She did such a great job. The key actors as well were fantastic, and honestly the performances all around were great, but it's hard to like kind of get your name recognized in a movie where you're acting against James McAvoy just going all out. So, props where props are due, but the standout here was easily James McAvoy. And the story as well, I actually enjoyed a lot of the story, a lot more than I expected to. I know everyone's biggest issue with the original is like how dumb the characters are, or just how overly polite they are, because it's a cultural thing, I believe. And Americans can be a little rude sometimes, apparently. And so this movie was interesting to see how they would try and talk themselves out of leaving, or how they'd get talked into staying, or how they'd be like forced into staying as it kind of goes on and on and on. And I actually enjoyed that quite a bit. And for the most part, I think that their reasons for staying are pretty interesting. They're pretty compelling. They're pretty convincing. I think there may be like one or two where it's like, oh my gosh, dude, don't do that. Like, just go. And sometimes it's like, are they overreacting? Are they not? And sometimes it can be, they're evil, but sometimes you're like, man, they kind of made a good point there. Like, just a little bit, you kind of made a good point. I do need to watch the original film before I can really draw any fair comparisons, but I did like what they did with the story. I do think that, I'll get into this in a minute, that the ending was just a tad underwhelming. I feel like there could have been maybe a little bit more going on, so to speak. I can't really say much, but I would have enjoyed maybe another little bit going in there, a little more maybe action or stakes perhaps. I think that really would have serviced the plot quite a bit. And getting into my mixed, and I have actually more than I realized for the mixed or negatives here. Honestly, I had a good time with this movie. I would recommend it. I found it pretty funny, very engaging. James McAvoy again kills it, and it's really fun to either just laugh at the characters or just be like so like, oh my gosh, James McAvoy is just incredible. Like, be so taken away in his performance and just so swept up in that I had a good time. Now, getting into the mix and the negatives, and yes, I have quite a bit here. The story and characters are just inherently by nature frustrating. So if you're someone who just kind of picks apart character choices a lot, which, let's be honest, at least and let's be honest, every single person watching, myself included, has a few films where they just pick apart the character choices, or where they just detest everything that the characters do. So if you're someone like that, you might find quite a bit of this movie very, very annoying and just very frustrating when you're like, why aren't they leaving? Why aren't they leaving? Why aren't they doing this? And I think that especially Scoot McNairy And Scoot McNairy's character especially can be frustrating. He is the dad who's just like polite. He's kind of like trying to get back on his feet, but he's also kind of not a loser, but both the mom and the dad are like unemployed. And I guess the mom is trying more than the dad. So sometimes it can just be very frustrating to see Scoot McNairy's character. But I think they're also written very well to the point where it's like, man, like, you're really annoying sometimes. But I also kind of get why you're like so frustrated and fed up and like upset all the time. Like, that's gotta be kind of hard. And so that's where it gets so hard, is like, by nature, the story is just so frustrating. It can be so just like, are you kidding me? These characters are so dumb, etc., etc. But it's supposed to be like that. So it's successful, but if I'm being honest, it did frustrate me, and that's the point of the movie, sure, but I do think that the cinematography and kind of lighting took a weird turn during a pivotal sequence in the film. It just stood out as very kind of like green screen, or just like they got the lighting wrong, and the cinematography, all of a sudden the camera was doing just like zooms for no reason, like weird camera angles that just didn't quite fit with the film. And then immediately after that sequence, it goes back into normal, and it goes back into what's happening. It's like the pond sequence when Scoot McNairy runs into the pond. That just started was weird to me, and kind of like the house scene before when he's on the ladder just kind of looked a little strange. That's such like a little, it's not a minor thing because it stuck out to me and I was like, that looks weird, but I can't quite put my finger on what looked weird about it, but it just looked a little strange. And those zooms, honestly, kind of were distracting, like, surprisingly. I was like, that's kind of weird. Like, no zooms the whole movie, and then it does like 3 zooms within like a minute, and then no zooms ever again. And honestly, I think, like, as far as the mixed goes, just that big one was the story, and the characters can really be frustrating at times. And again, I feel like I have to say this, that's just the nature of the film, that's the nature of this story, and the nature of those characters. And kind of getting into my negatives, the last act, as much as I really enjoyed the differences that it does and the similarities that it has to the original, I'm really trying not to spoil, and different things that it does, I think it could have used a little bit more oomph to it, a little bit more stakes, and I feel like that in and out of itself can be interpreted as a spoiler. I just think the whole film has pretty high stakes that just aren't fully realized. I do wish that they kind of went for it a little more, although I understand why they didn't. I just feel like maybe there could have been a little extra icing on the cake, and that's pretty much all I will say without getting into spoilers, because I really don't want to risk anything, and I feel like what I've said can already be interpreted the wrong way. Overall, I'm going to give Speak No Evil like a 7.5 out of 10. If I'm being honest, at least like 1.5 to 2 points of that is James McAvoy. The film by it in and out of itself can be very frustrating at times. That's just the nature of it. But overall, I really enjoyed myself, especially when it came to watching McAvoy just outperform. I mean, it's no offense to anybody, but he just outperformed everyone on screen because he's just that good. That's all I have for Speak No Evil, and as always, guys, thank you so much for the support, and have a great rest of your day.